Good evening and welcome to another edition of ATL Prime Sports. And I bet you this will be the best show we've had in a while. I'm JJ Jurjevich. Joining me this evening is our fabulous producer, Wayne, in Memphis, Tennessee. You can find us all at ATL Prime Sports, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. That's our social media. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, give us a review and answer the community question for us. That'll help us out. We do appreciate it. Our personal Twitters, at JJ Get You One for myself, at RWY Jr. for Wayne, and at Corder Todd for Todd Corder, who is not with us tonight. He is out doing some play-by-play hockey / umpiring / living the dream with the sports media world. So how's everybody doing tonight? Wayne, yourself, how you doing, man?
Well, right now, Memphis is ahead. They just started the second half in the Lady Tigers versus the South Florida Bulls women's tournament over there in Fort Worth, Texas. And I'm excited for that and the fact that I got to see my son on TV again playing the trombone in the pep band.
Well, that's awesome. I'm doing well myself. A lot better than Calvin Ridley. That is a head scratcher move.
Yeah, I'll bet you are doing better.
Yeah. So, $1,500 cost them like 11.1 million. I mean, I guess that's good math. But anyway, let's move forward. What's on tap with the show tonight? We will get to that. In our NFL quick hit segment, the Calvin Ridley saga. The voice of the Georgia State Panthers, Dave Cohen, will join us talking Georgia State Panthers Sun Belt Championship. And we'll also get into Major League Baseball's new rules right here on ATL Prime Sports. So without further ado, let's kick the show off. And we welcome back for the second week in a row the voice of the Georgia State Panthers and friend of the show, Dave Cohen. Dave, thanks for coming on. How you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing probably better than I was when we spoke a week ago, and we were talking about going down to Pensacola and playing in the Sun Belt Conference tournament. Georgia State, as you now know, won it 3 games in 3 days. Beat the Raging Cajuns of Louisiana last night down at the Pensacola Bay Center, and we made it back to Atlanta early this afternoon. And so now it's, enjoy the week. We'll get to sit back and watch the other conference tournaments, a lot of the Power 5 tournaments, and wait for Selection Sunday. This is the 6th time in Georgia State basketball history that they've reached the NCAA tournament. The program, as far as what we would term as a Division I program, is as old as me. It started 1963-64, so it's about 58 years. So that's 6 tournament bids in 58 seasons. Now, Georgia State played prior to that, but I'm not sure if it was NCAA, if it was NAIA. Nobody knows what it was, back in the 50s and the 40s. But yeah, just a great weekend in Pensacola. Felt pretty good going down there. Georgia State brought a 7-game winning streak into the tournament, and close win over Arkansas State in the first game on Saturday night, and then had to come back on Sunday and face Appalachian State, the team that beat us in the championship game down there a year ago. We exercised that ghost behind 29 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists from Corey Allen. And then last night, as you heard or you listened at least to some of it, we beat the Raging Cajuns of Louisiana and won the whole thing. So, yeah, it was a great weekend. It's only a great weekend for one team, and that's the one that leaves Pensacola with the automatic bid from the NCAA tournament. That's what some of your listeners who are used to watching SEC and ACC basketball, where they get multiple bids, if you're good and you're having a good season, even if you don't win the conference tournament, you feel pretty good about your chances to get an at-large. Well, we don't live in that world in the Sun Belt Conference. You've got to win the conference tournament to secure the automatic bid. There's nobody else in the Sun Belt that's going to the NCAA tournament. Texas State won the regular season. They won 20 games. They're going to go to the NIT. They got bounced in their first game out of the Sun Belt Conference tournament. So they will go to the NIT, but only one team, this year it's Georgia State, is going to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, they're dancing, man. That's my
Well,
favorite thing to do is when all the kids dance. I love seeing it.
yeah.
It's always fun. You mentioned it the sixth time, and as I was listening to you, the first 10 minutes plus of the game, they shot 70%. I think they were two or three of three from the 3-point line. Fast break was working. Defense was playing great. Explain the fast start and how the Panthers ended up holding off in that Sun Belt championship game.
Well, after Corey Allen scored the 29 in the second game over Appalachian State, we practiced the next morning at Pensacola State College, which is a JUCO. And as I'm sitting courtside working on my game sheets, and the team is just starting to get warmed up, Corey walked by, and I said, "Hey, Corey," I said, "just tell me," I said, "what is it like? Tell a non-college player, what is it like to be in whatever sort of a zone you were in last night, scoring the 29? Forget the rebounds, forget the assists. Those are," I said, "but you were hitting shots all over the floor. And do you know when you're entering whatever this zone is?" And he didn't really have a concrete answer other than to say, and if you've played basketball at any level, pick up or, whatever, high school, college, he just said the looks were good and it felt good as it was leaving his hand. And the zone sounded to me like the second the ball left his fingertips, he could have turned around and started running back to get back on defense because he just knew within him that the shot was going to go down. He didn't have to wait and watch it go into the net. He just knew that it was going to go into the net more often than not. I think that is the zone.
Yeah, I was listening to the game. It sounded like, oh, it's a 3 ball. It's going in. I mean, they were out. I think you mentioned on the broadcast, I think it was like 70%. I think midway through the first half, it was just an unbelievable shooting performance. Great win by the Panthers. Let's change subjects for a little bit. We talked about it before we came on the show. The new proposed rules in Major League Baseball and what you think about them as a play-by-play guy for Georgia State baseball. Wider bases, that's going to mean, closer from first to second and second to third, and honestly, home to first. You get an extra 3 inches each direction you go, technically 6 in between first, second, and third. So it's going to be fun to watch how that rule plays out. But what do you think of the 3 proposed rule changes, Dave?
No, no, and no. Why do we need bigger bases?
Yeah.
What is the purpose of that? How is that going to benefit the game?
The
Did
6
Babe
inches
Ruth
ain't going to
and
make
Joe
much difference.
DiMaggio and Willie Mays and did Ruth and Williams and Mays and Mantle and Hank Aaron and just name the greats of the game. Did they need that?
No.
The other one is the shift. Why should anybody be able to dictate, beyond the fact that you can only have 9 on the field at any one time, where you put those 9 players?
Good point.
Does basketball tell you have to play a zone, or you have to play man-to-man, or you have to play a 2-3 matchup zone, or a 1-3-1, or a box and one? No. That's up to you as the coach and the team and the captain. You play how you want to play. If I'm the manager and a left-handed hitter like Ted Williams comes up and they want to put the shift on, and I want to put 8 of my 9 guys between second and first and put all my outfielders in right field, I'm going to do it. Why should Major League Baseball tell me where I have to put my players on the field as I set things up defensively? It's stupid. The only thing baseball has an issue with right now, and if you're a purist and it may not affect you, is the length of the game. The younger generation doesn't have the same attention span that we grew up with. And I know Wayne and I are a little bit older than you, JJ. So
And
your attention
I love a
span
5-hour game. Don't get me started. Yeah. I'll take 5 hours any day of the week.
Yeah, and I'm a
Go
NASCAR fan, so I'll sit in front of the TV and watch something for as long as it takes.
Right, and I agree. What has made baseball a longer game is television.
Mm-hmm.
Timeouts.
In the old days, in between innings, the radio announcer said, "We'll be back after this timeout." You're listening to Atlanta Braves baseball on whatever radio station, or you're listening to the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Cubs. Before television, let's say the breaks were 60 seconds, if that. Now,
3 minutes.
Even when I do a game, yeah, they're 3 minutes. Even when I do a game, like last night, for example, because it was ESPN2, my in-game timeouts at 16, 12, 8, and 4 are 60 seconds. With a liner, it turns out to be about 70 seconds. Television's taking a 2.5 minute to 3 minute break.
Yep.
That's where the extra time is coming. That's what's making the games and the entire production longer. It's not the game itself per se. I take that back. There are some aspects of the game that have slowed it up some. One of my issues would be, do all the dirt on your hands and the bat behind your head and all. The minute when you enter the batter's box, you don't leave the batter's box. Don't step out every pitch and readjust your batting gloves and readjust the bat. Once you're in the batter's box, that's that. You stay in the batter's box until you either get a hit or you get out.
I agree with that. I think I'm indifferent on all the rules. The proposed rule changes. The biggest one I'm okay about, and I mentioned this off air to you, is the time clock. But I would extend that rule to the batter, where if the pitcher's ready in the 14 or 19 seconds what Major League Baseball is proposing, and the batter is not, give the batter a strike. If that's what you're really going to do, like you said, the Nomar Garcia Parras, the Troy Tulowitzkis used to beat the dirt off his cleats after every time for God knows what reasons. Yeah, I think that can go. So we'll move on in the interview here. You're listening to Georgia State voice Dave Cohen right here on ATL Prime Sports. You can find Dave at GA State Voice on Twitter. Let's go and we mentioned the Sun Belt Championship. Before we wrap up, we got to talk about it, bringing it again. Have you heard any inside information? I know the answer is probably no, but does Coach Lanier have any idea where he thinks they may be seated going into the tournament?
To be honest, no. It was talked about a little bit at the arena last night before we left. You know, where would Georgia State be sent regional-wise? What seed would they get? My guess is that Georgia State will be a 15. We ended up with 19 wins on the year or 18 wins on the year. But we got off to a slow start. We lost games early. We started out conference play 0-4. We just happened to finish really strong. And, that to our benefit going into the tournament. But I don't know that we have, if you look at the full body of work from early November through the conference tournament, I don't know, that we've earned, let's say, a 12 seed or even a 13 seed. I mean, we did not have a quality non-conference win during the regular season. We played 2 Atlantic 10 teams, didn't play well either time. Of course, COVID affected our game at Rhode Island. We went up there with just a few players, enough to play the game. And then we lost badly at Richmond. We lost against Georgia Tech in overtime in a game. If we had Eliel Saseme, we probably would have won. And we did not play well at Mississippi State. So, in other words, when you step back and look at the whole body of work, we're going to be, in my guess, a 15 seed, maybe a 14, based on what we did down the stretch, the last third of the season, and what we did in the tournament.
Yeah, well,
the closest regional would be Greenville, South Carolina.
Yeah, well, I would say that they have a chance of going maybe as high as a 12 seed, and that might be stretching it. And I would say that they're probably going to end up in that in that bracket up there in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh or something like that. But as far as the game goes, how about that Sosemi getting his third triple double? And I couldn't help but get caught up in the emotions of seeing him post game, excited as he was celebrating with his coach out there on the court.
But, he's a really good story. And if you follow me on Twitter or even Facebook, I posted, some pictures from last night. Now, the radios are set up on the first concourse inside the Pensacola Bay Center. So you have to go down through the lower bowl in the crowd in order to get down to the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Probably about 75 steps up to where I was. And I was solo all weekend. So game ends, and I get through the first segment of my post game, and I can see them celebrating and cutting the net and taking pictures and the trophy presentation and all that kind of stuff. Well, I got a friend of mine who is one of our boosters. I said, hey, can you help me out? Can you get LEL and see if he'll come up? He was named to the all tournament team. Right. Well, he made the effort, and he came up and ran through the stands and came up and was on with me on the post game. It's a really good story. I did a podcast with him on our Panther Insider podcast before the season started, and I won't go into too much of it other than to tell you he's from the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yeah.
And about 7 years ago, he left and went to Canada to play basketball and to go to school. Ended up coming and signing at the University of Cincinnati. Georgia State played Cincinnati in 2018 in the tournament. He was on the Cincinnati Bearcats bench. He didn't play a lot. My point is he ends up transferring to Georgia State. He's been a major player for us. I've got him in one of my top 3 all-time post players. But the thing about it is he has not been back to his home or has not physically seen his mother and father in over 6 years.
Wow. I did not know that.
He's going to leave Georgia State with at least one master's degree and his bachelor's. So he's an extremely bright kid, plays with a lot of emotion, a lot of heart, a lot of energy. He really is, I know we don't want to spend too much time on it, but as Georgia State was struggling, he missed the first 11 games of the season because of an injury. He came back and slowly had to work himself back into the player that we saw a year ago. We talked about this on the radio last night, and Coach Lanier and I talked about it on the pregame. He really was the catalyst to Georgia State's turnaround because of the energy, not only on the floor, but his leadership and his energy inside the locker room.
Yeah,
I agree.
So I see exactly what you're saying, Wayne. What you see, he had 3 consecutive double-doubles in the tournament. What you see from him on the floor, that's pretty much him.
Yeah.
And he's a really, really good story. I mean, that's tough to not see your parents for upwards of 6 years as you've gone from the Congo to Canada to the United States and Cincinnati to Atlanta. And he, as he told me last night, he's really found a home in Atlanta, and he's really found a home and a second family at Georgia State.
Good.
And even as I'm sitting there interviewing him last night, it was really kind of cool to hear him say that.
Yeah.
That is awesome. An amazing story. And we'll be paying attention to the Panthers in their tournament run come Sunday. We'll see their fate. Dave, as always, thanks for coming on. We always appreciate it. And tell our listeners how they can check out the Panther Insider podcast with you.
Well, they can always find the Panther Insider podcast, and I think we've done 97 podcasts or shows. But they can always access that by visiting GeorgiaStateSports.com. And then across the top menu is fans. And if you hover over that, the menu will drop down. You'll see Radio Network, but you'll also see the Panther Insider podcast driven by Ford. And I've done, I think, out of the 97, I think I've done 95 of them. And they have been fun to do, some of the interviews. When you interview a guy like LEL and you hear his story, it's really interesting, as you get to know some of these student athletes and some of the coaches and athletic directors and presidents and so on and so forth that are in the Georgia State world. So they can find that online at GeorgiaStateSports.com. And of course, come NCAA tournament time, we'll be right back on the 50,000 watt flagship 88.5 FM WRAS, streaming as well on the GSU Athletics mobile app.
As always, folks, this is ATL Prime Sports. That's Dave Cohen, voice of the Georgia State Panthers. You can find him on Twitter at GA State Voice. Dave, thanks as always for coming on. Have a good one and go Panthers.
All right. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week. And keep your fingers crossed for Greenville, South Carolina regional. It's nice and close to Atlanta.
And I'll double cross him for that 12th seed.
Okay.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. It'd be great. I just don't know about that. We'll see.
All right.
All right, Dave.
All right,
We'll talk to you later, man. Good seeing you, buddy.
All right. We'll see you.
See you. Dave Cohen, voice of the Georgia State Panthers, right here on ATL Prime Sports. Let's catch up on what's going on around the sports world, folks. If you like this podcast, give us a like, give us a subscribe. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, give us that review, give us that listen, answer the community question. Guys, let's go ahead and get into Selection Sunday is this weekend. Let's break down our last four in, first four out, and let's talk some March Madness. And with March Madness, now comes we'll make this. I guess this will be our second annual. We've done this. Is this 2 or 3? We're gonna do the bracket challenge again, Wayne.
Yep.
So this will make 2 years. Let's go ahead and get that out of the way. ATL Prime Sports 2022 ESPN NCAA Tournament Challenge. That will, once the field is announced, I will open it up. It will be under ATL Prime Sports. You can follow us on social media for more information about it. Winner will get a Visa gift card. We haven't figured out the amount yet, but we will get to that. You got to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Either follow us on Spotify or Apple and one of our social media platforms. So just stay tuned for that. You can personal, again, at JJ Get You One. You can personal message me there or at ATL Prime Sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So, folks, let's go ahead and get into it. Wayne, I'll go with you first, man. Give me your last four out of the tournament. We'll start out with first four out right now.
All right. Well, the first four I've got out is going to be VCU, Indiana, Florida, and Virginia Tech.
You know, we're very, very close on those. I actually have 2 SEC teams. I got Florida and A&M as my first four out. I got VCU, Virginia Commonwealth as my third, and I have the Cavaliers of Virginia out as well right now. Those are my first four out. I think Indiana might sneak into this tournament if they can win a couple games in the Big Ten tournament. We'll look at that moving forward. Same with BYU. Their season's done. The West Coast tournament is over. Maybe if someone else can get an upset in one of the lesser conferences, maybe BYU can sneak in. But those are my first four out: Virginia, VCU, Florida, Texas A&M. Let's go our first four in. Wayne, what do you got on your first four in? Or I should say last four in.
Last four in, yeah.
First four, we all know who those are.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say Michigan, Xavier, SMU, and I guess Wake Forest.
Ooh, well, I got your Memphis Tigers as a lot of the last four teams.
Well, I've actually got Memphis Tigers a little bit higher than that. I don't have them close to the bubble.
You probably do, but they're in. I think they're safe. I mentioned earlier in the week, Todd thought I was crazy earlier on. You and I were confident. I thought Anthony Penny Hardaway would get him playing well. He has. Their worst loss of the season is to my Georgia Bulldogs by far. Other than that, I think they'll get in. I think Michigan is personally, I think they'll get in because of their brand, but I don't think they deserve it. So I think Michigan, Memphis. I'll go Creighton and Wake Forest as my last four in. You could throw Xavier, Wyoming, Rutgers in there, SMU. I think they're probably in. But those are 8 teams right there that really are on the bubble, per se, as to their tournament destiny. But I think Michigan will get in. Juwan Howard will be back, but they're playing better without him right now. We'll see if that makes a difference. But if they get 1 or 2 wins in the Big Ten tournament, TC thinks they're in. I think they shouldn't be, but I think they will be because of the brand. And that's about all I got on the last four in.
Yeah. Well,
Let's go
I wanted to mention though
Go
that
ahead.
your Loyola Chicago played their way in.
Oh, they're in. They're
Yeah.
in. Sister Jean is in, and they will make another run
Yeah.
because God is on Sister Jean's side. Obviously, he's graced her with golly, gee, I don't know how old she is, but she looks better and better every year, unlike the most of us. But I love that story. It's always great talking Sister Jean on this great podcast we have, ATL Prime Sports. Is honestly, that's like my favorite mascot.
Yeah.
Mascot in
If you want to call it a
sports.
mascot.
Yeah, I mean seriously, they should name the school after her. Like they should just literally call it the Loyola Chicago Sister Jeans, and I'd be totally fine with it.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
folks, let's move on. Let's go to some of our favorites in the tournament who we think might make a Final Four run. I think your Auburn Tigers are there, as I've mentioned. I think Duke's there. I think Gonzaga's there. I think this might be the year Gonzaga gets it done. And then Baylor. Those are my favorites right now to get to the Final Four. I know it's pretty much chalk, but honestly, with the field as wide open as it is, we saw couple weeks ago where the top 7 or 8 of the top 10 lost, something like that. Just chaotic all the way down the end of the season. So I think Gonzaga is really poised to finally get that hump off their back. Maybe they finally beat 2 top 5 seed teams in that consecutive weeks at the end. They have yet to do it in a tournament run. And that I had always said playing in that West Coast Conference hurt them. But here's the real deal. The West Coast Conference this year was actually pretty darn good, and I think that helps out their cause. So that's why I like Coach Feud and the Gonzaga Bulldogs.
Yeah.
I think they might get the hump off their back this year. But like I mentioned, I like Gonzaga, I like Auburn, I like Baylor, and I like Duke and Coach K in his final year. I'm going to ride high on Coach K in my bracket. That might give away a little cheat code for you, but I am. I just think Banchero's a good player. Coach K's got the coach. They got the defense with Williams down low. I like Duke a lot, and those are my favorites to get to the Final Four. Now, I may not have them in my Final Four once the brackets come out, but those are my favorites before the brackets do indeed come out. Wayne, what you got?
Well, I'm not going to go so far as to say who I think is going to be in the Final Four, but one team that I would look out for.
Just favorites. It doesn't have to mean you're making the Final Four.
I'm going to say that one of the teams that I'm watching, apart from the normal players or teams that you would have in there, is I look for Arkansas to actually do really well in the SEC tournament. Not really surprised too many people who are SEC fans, but I think they're going to also do really well in the tournament, NCAA tournament as well. So that's my dark horse pick.
I like it. Arkansas is a great pick there, Wayne. And they're a type of team that can get the job done offensively and defensively. They got a good coach, and here we go.
Anybody but Kentucky. I cannot stand to see Kentucky. I want them out in the first round. I want them to get surprised, spanked, whatever you want to call it.
I just want to see another new champion, a new face. We had Baylor last year. Love to see Gonzaga cut down the nets. Obviously, the Duke story would be great. But really, man, comes down, I would not mind seeing your Auburn Tigers make
Memphis Tigers. Now the Memphis Tigers.
Just have all Tigers Final Four somehow, some way. I don't know if that's possible. We'll have to look at the brackets. But folks, again, if you're interested, Sunday when the tournament is announced, the brackets are announced, we will open up the ATL Prime Sports 2022 ESPN Tournament Challenge. And stay tuned at ATL Prime Sports for more information on how to join. That wraps up our college basketball segment. Any quick final thoughts on that, Wayne?
No, I think we got that.
I think we got it too. Let's go ahead. Our NFL quick hits. It's a good one. We got really 3 big stories. We're going to cover all 3 very quickly. The trade of the offseason, Aaron Rodgers is a Packer for life, and
Yep.
Well, I'm wearing Falcon stuff because that's about all I can do. Calvin Ridley's no longer on the team. Gambling suspension. Let's get into our quick hits. I'll go off with the first one. It's probably the trade. Honestly, Wayne, I think this may be the biggest trade in NFL history. This really is up there with the Herschel Walker a trade where Jimmy Johnson acquires all these picks. This is huge. Seattle trades quarterback Russell Wilson and a fourth-round pick to Denver. For two first-rounders, two second-rounders, one fifth-round pick, quarterback Drew Lock, who's a pretty established quarterback in this league, tight end Noah Fant, who's a pretty good player, and defensive end Shelby Harris. They got an arm and a leg from him. That's a good way to rebuild your franchise from a guy that's been there 10 years, who's had more wins than 10 years than anybody else in the NFL. So I think it's a good trade. Wayne, your quick thoughts on the Seattle trade with Denver?
Well, hopefully it falls apart because I don't really care for Seattle. Hopefully they end up on the bad end of the stick, and Russell Wilson does fantastic up there in the Mile High City.
Yeah, I think he'll do all right in the 5280. Jerry Jeudy had a quick change of events in 24 hours, as you see on his Twitter feed, which is absolutely hysterical. He tweeted a frowning face, then within 24 hours, okay, we lit. So go check out Jerry Jeudy's Twitter. That's a fun follow. Green Bay has signed Aaron Rodgers to a 4-year, $200 million extension per reports. It will make him the highest paid player in NFL history at $50 million this season. What a wonderful contract for Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. And it comes down to ask the question, was Jordan Love one of the most useless picks in NFL history? Because is he even going to be able to play? Will he be there in 4 years? In 4 years, he'll be about 27 years old. What do you think on the Aaron Rodgers extension in Green Bay, Wayne?
Well, I think Aaron Rodgers will probably be starting, obviously. And the other guy, they got to have somebody to hold the ball for the extra points and the field goal. So
You're right about that. You are right about that. Well, we'll get into the nitty gritty. Wide receiver. Wow. Kelvin Ridley, I did not think this would happen, has been suspended for at least the 2022 season for gambling on NFL football games. How does this affect the Falcons moving forward? First, I got to shake my head, hold my head in my hand, because as a Falcon fan, that would hurt. You like Kelvin Ridley. You drafted him in the first round. He's been productive. Alabama guy, had Julio on the team. It's all falling apart. No more Julio. Now it looks like Calvin Johnson. I wish we were talking about Calvin Johnson. We're talking about Calvin Ridley. And here we go. Calvin Ridley is now suspended for a year. How does that affect the Falcons moving forward? Look, the gambling happened. First, we'll talk about the suspension here. It is for the 2022 season. The gambling, per the NFL investigation, happened over a 5-day period in late November when he was not with the team. And the NFL investigation also found that no one else was involved. Good news there. This will push his contract back 1 year. Bad. But one positive that comes from this is salary cap relief of over $11 million. It's not a whole lot. Doesn't make you huge players in free agency, but it does give you a little room to sign a player that you may not have been able to sign, like a Cordero Patterson, the wide receiver / running back, or the budget safety, Eric Harris, who came in and gave you a great year. These are guys that you could really, really benefit with that $11 million. Maybe lock them up for an extra year or so in this system under Arthur Smith. Cordell Patterson flourished. I think he's a good weapon. I think with the ability to put him outside and in the backfield, there's just not many people in the NFL that can do that. He's one of them. I think that's a good weapon. This $11 million can help shore up Cordell Patterson for another year. And again, now another problem with this, Wayne, we don't have any wide receivers in Atlanta. We got nothing.
Yeah. Well,
No Calvin Johnson next year. No Zacchaeus. no Christian Blake, Russell Gage, Taj Sharp. They're all gone. They're all either restricted or unrestricted free agents. Don't know if any of them are going to come back, or the Falcons will make an effort to re-sign them. So now, moving forward, how does this really affect the Atlanta Falcons? They may have to draft a wide receiver at number 8 overall. And if those players are there, by gum, it's going to be tough to pass up a really good wide receiver in this draft because there's a bunch of them. Wayne, what are your thoughts on the Calvin Ridley suspension and how it affects our Dirty Birds, man?
Well, I think I don't know why I feel this way, but I feel like there's a whole lot of smoke and a whole lot of mirrors because this does help out the salary cap. I wouldn't worry too much about what Calvin Ridley's going to do, except for will he be with Caesar Sportsbook for the next year or MGM doing their commercials and whatnot. And as far as the Falcons offense goes, you know that Arthur Smith prefers tight ends to receivers anyway.
That's a good point. That is a good point. Lots to go on here. We can mention the suspension. Do you think it's too harsh? You can go follow us on Twitter at ATL Prime Sports. I have a pinned tweet up there. Give us your thoughts, your opinions on it. Too harsh, just right, or give us another opinion and comment below on the tweet. We'd love to see your reactions. I personally think it was just right. Look, it's posted all over any NFL locker room. I know you have the gambling affiliates in the NFL, DraftKings, Caesar Sportsbook, and whatever else is out there, but you cannot bet on games. Take Pete Rose as an example in a different sport. You just can't do it. Now, if we want to talk about...
Now, does Kelvin Ridley, does he get to be in the Hall of Fame, or are they going to boot him out too?
That's a good question when it comes down to it. He could be that type of player. He's got the talent. He's got the speed. He's got the hands. We'll see if this is a speed bump in his career or if he works this out. But, yeah, no, that could be a real question down the road. If he has these Hall of Fame numbers at the end of his career, if he's able to play again, will that hold bar when it comes down to the Hall of Fame? That's a great question. But, folks, I do think it needs to be said. I think it's ridiculous that the NFL suspends guys, players who had domestic violence issues, child abuse issues for 2, 4, 6 games, and a guy who gambles when he wasn't in the Falcons uniform for a year. It's backwards, but again, I think the suspension is right because the integrity of the game is at stake, and you can't have anybody think that the games are fixed or being swayed or points being shaved in a different direction. So that's my final thought on that. Wayne, any final thoughts on the Calvin Ridley saga?
Nah.
Let's go ahead and move on. Final topic. Major League Baseball lockout is still ongoing, but let's talk about some of these proposed rule changes. If you haven't heard, folks, Major League Baseball and the Players Association have agreed to 3 major rule changes that could take full effect by 2023. Again, these aren't locked in stone yet, but it seems like they may be gaining some traction real quick. According to John Heyman of Major League Baseball Network, the Players Association and Major League Baseball have agreed to ban shifts, make the bases larger, and also implement a pitch clock. A proposal of a robo-umpires has been rejected. Had to throw that in there because we know that's coming to AAA this year. Let's get our thoughts on these rules. I'll go for it first. I, for one, don't mind the larger bases. I think it's a little safety issue at first base, but I would prefer, if we were going to go that route, just make an orange bag at first base. Just one at first base and keep the rest of them. Put it in foul territory. Give the runners on these close plays another target to hit. Or just increase the base to 18 inches at only first base to give that first baseman just a little extra room to make the play. As we all saw in the World Series last year, remember Freddie Freeman got stepped on. I can't remember off the top of my head which game it was, and we all, as in Atlanta, go, and we go, maybe the bases should be bigger. So I'm okay with this rule, but again, I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I'm indifferent. I really don't care about the rules in general. I just, like Dave, want to see the game sped up through less commercial breaks, get the game back and get the ball back in play. So larger bases, I like the rule at first base and first base only. Wayne, your thoughts on the larger bases real quick.
Yeah, I don't think 6 inches is going to make much difference in how quickly they get around, or maybe even how well they, basemen are able to hold that base when the runner's coming. So,
We'll go on to the next pitch clock rule. Major League Baseball experimented with the pitch clock in the Low A West League last summer, and it was effective.
yeah,
It was
I
very
imagine.
effective. If pitchers didn't pitch the ball within the 15 or 17-second time clock, it was 15 without runners, 17 with runners. If they didn't pitch the ball within that time span, the umpire could give the batter a ball. So here's what it did. It cut down baseball by 20 plus minutes.
Yeah.
From an average time of 3 hours, 2 minutes to an average time of 2 hours, 41 minutes. That is a significant amount of time lost in a game, or I should say gained in a game in that instance. So that eye-opening rule has me thinking. I'm not for it, but I'm optimistic if it's going to go into place. I would be more on board if the batter was added to this rule, where example like, hey, the pitcher's ready to go and the batter's not. That's a strike. Get back in the box. And Dave mentioned it earlier. I hate the batters coming in, adjusting their gloves. I call it the Nomar Garciaparra rule because he took forever after every pitch.
Yeah.
But look, I mean, Major League Baseball, folks, I should add on top of it, is eyeing a 14-second rule with no runners on and 19 seconds with runners on. So, Wayne, 20 plus minutes is hard to argue against.
Yeah, well, I like the pitch clock idea, and I like what Dave said about adding the batter to that clock. However, I think I would take it one step further just to encourage everybody to hurry up. And I'd say if the pitch doesn't go off in the allotted amount of time, everybody takes a base. And if the batter doesn't get up and bat in the allotted amount of time, out.
Yeah, no, that's not a bad idea either. I mean, you got to add some excitement here if you're going to put these rules in. That's not a bad proposal there, Wayne. Let's go ahead and get final thoughts on this, which is going to be the band shift. Look, and this is the one that really gets me. I've talked about it on this show before. Balls being put in play where players are running around the bases is at historic low levels. Look, percentage of plate appearances with the shift has increased to 34.1% as of 2020 per NBCSports.com. Tim Stebbins article. You can go check it out. But again, balls being put into plays at a historic low level, and that is what I don't like. You don't see guys getting these seeing eye singles because of the shift, and I'm indifferent on the shift. I think the shift ban is good because it's going to require two position players on each side of second base. But I wouldn't be opposed to banning the shift with an infield position player and making the shift player have to be an outfielder. I'd be okay with that simply because it would open up the outfield for a gap double, maybe triple, maybe inside the park home run if you're pulling the far if you're pulling the guy from left field or right field. So again, I'm indifferent on all three of these rules. I'm optimistic on all three of them. I do like the expanded base at first. I don't want to see any other basics expanded in size. Pitch count, I'm okay for if it's extended to the batter. And the band shift, I'm okay with because let's face it, balls need to be put in play for it to be exciting and to gain the audience of a younger generation. Wayne, your thoughts on the band shift real quick?
Yeah, that band shift, if they do implement it, it's not going to make any difference in the length of the game. I don't think at all. And I don't even know why they're bothering with that, other than they're trying to manipulate how the game's played.
Well, folks, that wraps up our show tonight for ATL Prime Sports. I want to say thanks to our guest, Dave Cohen, for coming on as usual. My final thought for the show tonight will be, folks, Stay safe out there. Lots going on in the world. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it. Wayne, your final thoughts on the show, man.
I'm just ready for more basketball, and the eliminations will begin.
Absolutely. March Madness is one of the most fun times of the entire sports year.
Yeah.
Folks, for Wayne, I'm JJ. Todd Corder was out this evening. That's ATL Prime Sports. Follow us at ATL Prime Sports, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can find us on Apple Podcast and Spotify. I want to say thanks for listening. We're live sometimes on blogtalkradio.com/Mancini Sports. Stay tuned to our social media. We'll let you know if we have a show this week live. Again, for Wayne, I'm JJ. See you guys next week. Get you one.